Greetings! In this video I'm going to be painting a fancy Rikarius Pattern Razorback from the Bloodravens chapter. I know I've done the Bloodravens before, but I stumbled across this model and I just couldn't resist making my own version. The original uses Forge World parts, namely the resin assault cannon turret, the Rhino siege shield, the Rhino extra armor, and the Hurricane sponsons from the Storm Raven. I went about trying to recreate what I couldn't find online. That meant heavily modifying a Land Raider sponson and a Tarantula turret. Though had I known at the time that the sponson was from the Storm Raven, I could have used that. I'm a novice with Blender, so I'm pretty happy with the custom ammo belt and the overall edits I made to these bits. After printing them, I did the usual cleanup for printed models and I primed them black. For the base coat of the tank, I used my airbrush. This is the only airbrushing I use except for a varnish at the end. For this I've used Khorne Red, and I've put a fair bit of thinner and a few drops of flow improver into the pot when I first opened them. Doing this means I don't have to mix up paint every time I want to use it. If you're wanting to follow along but don't have an airbrush, you can do this by hand with a bunch of thin coats and a large brush, or by stippling with a wet dry brush. Or you can use a third-party spray primer such as Forge's Reliquary Red, which claims to be a colour match for Khorne Red. It's unlikely I'll be doing much airbrushing on this channel. I want to avoid it as I know a lot of people don't have the space and the investment can be a bit daunting. I mainly use it as a replacement for aerosol paints, the primers and varnish. The airbrush versions of these lasts 10 times longer and costs less. I've definitely saved the equivalent cost of the whole setup over buying spray paint, in the past 2 years alone. This spray booth is just a large cardboard box with a hole in the back, with kitchen towel taped to it to act like a filter. The hole faces an open window, and a fan beside me blows air through the booth out the window. I also use a respirator, though the airflow is quite effective and it may not be needed. It doesn't hurt though. If I was airbrushing with lacquer or enamel paints, I'd definitely want to upgrade this setup. This is not safe enough for that. Over to the painting desk now, starting with a dry brush of Evil Sunz Scarlet. I applied this all over using a large makeup brush. This will need emphasizing later in the process, but it works well as a foundation for future steps. Wanting to emphasize the red further, I switched to Wild Rider Red and applied a light coat over most of the edges, focusing on the most prominent and visible edges. When I go back to highlighting the red later, I won't go this bright. You could probably skip this step, I just felt it was necessary at the time and I don't know how needed it is. Next onto the most time consuming part for me, base coating the tan bits with Xandru dust. I used the reference to pick up the spots I wanted to paint, but I also painted the back door as I put an armorial on there. Without it, I think it would have looked weird with so much tan towards the front. The idea here is to apply a bunch of thin coats to get a smooth finish. At this point I think I'm going to stop using just water to thin coats for base coats like this. Instead I should incorporate some actual acrylic thinner. I struggle to keep the consistency right, especially now that, at time of recording, it's coming into summer. The Xandru dust is looking nice, but unfortunately it's not bright enough to match the Bloodraven that I painted on the channel a while back. So moving on up to a Shabty Bone it is. This took a bunch of coats as well, thinned like the previous paint. With the tan colour base coated, I switched to Screaming Skull to paint edge highlights along any actual edges that stick out. There's only a few on this arrangement, so it only took a few minutes. Now moving on to the armorials and other select details with Abaddon black. These armorials were embossed into the bulldozer, the upper front plate, and the rear door. I modified the symbol to have a hollow blood drop, so that the droplet would stick out, which prevents any washes from darkening the red. These visors here failed to print properly, so we painted them black too. Had they not been damaged, I might have painted them in the same way as the vision blocks that I'll paint in later steps. I'm not fussed. They're out of the way, and the trim around these windows will distract nicely. Now onto the blood drop from the armorial. I used Mephiston Red to base coat, doing 2 thin coats to get nice coverage. Following that, I used Evil Sunz Scarlet to build up the red, helping it stand out against the darker red elsewhere on the tank. The turret has a few lenses, so I painted in one of them red, like shown on the reference. Now that the tan parts have had enough time to dry, I brought out the gloss varnish to prepare for some decals. I applied these off camera, using the reference as inspiration. I went with the second company like the reference, maybe this model fights alongside it. Next, I switched to Iron Warriors to base coat the bare metal details. This includes the weapon details, smoke discharges, exhausts, vents, the little greebles around the cupolas and the antenna sections, and the viewport trims. To highlight the bare metal, I used Runefang steel. This was used as an edge highlight on most of the previously painted metal surfaces, but I also applied this over every single rivet on the model. Painting rivets silver is sometimes considered the wrong choice, stating that it'd be painted alongside the rest of the tank. But I figure Tech Marines and Servitors have to remove these plates often and maintain what's underneath, not bothering to repaint each rivet or cleaning the surface if the armour isn't compromised. Now onto the headlights. I should have painted these in before the metal, but here we are. I've used Averland Sunset to base coat them. This can take a few coats because, well, it's yellow. I then brightened the lights up with Aerial Yellow, doing another few coats. There's no real method here, just fill it in. The lights aren't going to be painted as if they're on, so stopping here is fine. And back we go to Iron Warriors, to paint the cage over the lights. For the vision blocks and other miscellaneous lenses, I used Caledor blue as a base. Typically I'd use red for these bits, but to contrast against the red of the armour, the references used blue, which I think is a good choice. There's a fair amount of these around the model, and I've made sure to paint every visible surface. There's a bit towards the rear I painted like this too, and 2 lenses on the turret that also received attention. For the first highlighting pass I used Caledor Sky. This is a nice and vivid blue, which I really like as a highlight for Caledor blue. I've applied it as an edge highlight here, with some corners cut to help sell it as a material that's different from the armour. I've made a little graphic here to try and explain it better. Next, use Latherne Blue to do a smaller highlight, mainly there to act as a shine, so it's only on the topmost edge. If you wanted, you can go further by making the Caledor Blue darker towards the bottom, or by adding a gloss varnish on the lens, or even doing manual reflections with white and such, but I'm content with this. Now for another edge highlight, this time using Mechanicus Standard Grey to highlight the black bits. I went in and did some scratches on some of the panels, though the black is fairly sparse on this model. Onto the tracks now. I used Rhinox Hide with a large craft brush to quickly base coat it. I did switch to a smaller brush to reach the undersides of the tracks. You might notice I'm keeping the road wheels red. Tanks in real life often have the road wheels the same colour as the hull, despite it looking a bit boring. My next step was to heavily dilute Scrag Brown to essentially turn it into a thick wash. I mixed a fair amount of water in and applied it messily to the tracks, letting the pigment flow into the crevices. I switched to a bigger brush to apply it faster, and I brought more water into the mix on the tracks itself. This step takes a fairly long time to dry with all the water involved. I was planning to do more with the tracks, texture paints, enamel washes, add some silver in, but I couldn't decide which to use, and I figured it might look better now than it would after all those steps. Remember that red lens I mentioned? I suddenly did, so I went in with Wild Rider Red to highlight. I then followed that with a dot of Luggenoth Orange that I couldn't manage to get on camera. Now onto the weathering, starting with some light chipping with Evil Sun Scarlet. I used a sponge for the first stage, using it to quickly apply semi-random dots representing chips over many surfaces on the model. I followed this up with a pass with a fine brush, connecting some dots to make scratches and adding some other highlights and dots where the sponge and earlier dry brush couldn't reach. Next, following on from the red, I used Rhinox Hide to do some heavier chipping effects. I used the sponge first, but only a few edges are reachable with the sponge for chipping the tan. I did also apply this over the red, as well as switching to a brush like before for the fine details. I really like this stage of a paint job. Adding the grit to an otherwise bright and colourful model is a really fun transition. I could definitely go way too far and ruin this model if I didn't hold myself back. Onto some enamel effects now. Starting with the trusty Sepia Paneliner from AK Interactive. This was applied pretty much all over the model, avoiding the tracks as to not cover the scrag brown, and also not letting it into the recessed armorials, as when it's dry it'll be brighter than the black and it would look odd. I applied this roughly over some panels too, mainly the tan bits. I used some odorless thinner from Ammo with an old brush that's lost its tip, but still has some firm bristles, to reactivate the enamel paint and scratch it around the surface. The Sepia panel liner was stubborn and didn't want to reactivate, but I eventually got it moving again. On the rear door, I made sure to move the brush in vertical strokes, hoping that it would create some streaks when dry. Next, I decided to try out some AK Liquid Pigment. This is a pigment with an enamel binder that allows it to flow like normal paint, but dry somewhat like pigment powder. I got the enamel thinner out with a brush and a cotton tip to create a transition at the edge, as well as adding some additional texture. Whilst the pigment was drying, I went back to the turret and applied some Dryad Violet to the tip of the assault cannons, then following the Seraphim Sepia further down the barrels, whilst the previous paint was still wet to help blend it in together. It's a quick application, but it works well. When everything had dried, I finally applied an ultramatte varnish and glued that seed shield on. And here we have it! A Rikarius Pattern Razorback from the Blood Ravens chapter. This was a lot of fun. I really like unique variants of vehicles like this, especially when it's a Blood Ravens creation. Yeah, I should probably do a brief background for this vehicle. As far as I can tell, the original vehicle was created by a Games Workshop employee, who I think was called Rick. Some unofficial rules were made for it that were added to the Warhammer store as a downloadable file. On said file, it describes the lore behind the vehicle. Following an unprecedented build-up of orcs in the Aurelian system, the Blood Ravens decided to modify a Razorback with what you see here, naming it after the second company captain of the Blood Ravens, Rikarius. The design was manufactured by Mars and distributed to a number of other chapters, but it fell out of use and is now considered a relic. Unique patterns like this are one of the things I love most about Warhammer. As for my interpretation of it, I'm really happy with the result. There are a bunch of alternate ways to paint this thing up, and there were times where I got stuck trying to make decisions. Should I have gone with a different weathering process completely? The chipping method is standard practice for me, but I'm talking about mud, rubble, or even gore. The Siege Shield is described as being used to help protect the vehicle against bomb squigs and power claws. I could have gone with some blast marks or carved in some cuts from power claws, but likewise I could have done similarly to my Ultramarines Vindicator that I showed for my 50th video, where I put real crushed rocks on the dozer blade and then fixed them in place. Maybe could have done that and also gone with mud and enamel on top. Who knows? And as I said, ultimately I am very happy with this final result. It's just all the different ways I could have gone, which is making me want to do even more of these rare variant tanks. Let me know in the comments if you know of any lost patterns. Otherwise, let me know what you think about the weathering process. What do you think I should have gone with, or do you think this simple faded mud effect is enough? Either way, I hope you enjoyed this video. I've changed my lighting setup for this one, and I've had a lot of troubles trying to get the colour temperature fixed. But it's a bit wonky, so I'm sorry about that. But anyway, I hope you stick around for the next one.